Hello everyone and welcome to another C++ beginner tutorial. This is tutorial number 9. In the last tutorial we did some work with strings, arrays, and characters. And in this tutorial we're going to do some work with loops. So over here you can see that I've created some loops for you. Three main loops we're going to go over is a while loop, the do while loop, the for loop, and then we'll end up with a practical example where we loop over an array of characters and print that out to the screen. So the first loop I'd like to introduce you guys to is the while loop. It's pretty simple. These loops are pretty common across most programming languages, various syntax differences in C++. So if you're familiar with loops, you'll probably be able to pick this up pretty well. So we're just going to declare in this while loop function two integers, x equals 10 and I equals 0. Then we're going to do the while loop, and the syntax for that is while, and then you open parentheses, and then whatever condition you're going to evaluate, and this can be any condition at all, just like we went over with if statements. You have all your logical operators. You can have any logical expression here that will evaluate to a Boolean. So this is the condition. We're going to evaluate x is greater than 0. And when this simplifies to true, the loop will run. So that will execute this code. And if it is false, it will just go here and be done. So we're going to go into the loop code and review the modulus operator here. So it's the percent symbol. And what this is saying is divide x by 2, and the result will be the remainder. So essentially, if x is divisible by 2, i.e. there's no remainder, then we're going to increase I by 2. That's what you have, I plus equals 2. So you're going to take the value of I, and then you're going to add 2, and that will be the new value of I. Else, we're going to do I multiply equals 2. So we're going to take I times 2. This comment is incorrect. We're going to take I times 2, and that will be the new value of I. And then we're going to print out the new value of I on a new line. And then we're going to decrement x by 1. It's very important that you eventually end up having the condition where you have this will become false and you'll break out of the loop. Otherwise, you'd have a while true loop and it's going to loop forever. Sometimes you do want to create a while true loop and you just evaluate your condition inside. So I could change this to while true. And then down here, if x is greater than 0, then we're going to break. So what this will do, if x is greater than 0, break. And this will accomplish the same thing. However, you want to avoid while true loops when possible, so I'm just going to go back to what we originally had. But you can use break. The other keyword that you can use is continue. So let's say you evaluate a certain condition, and then you can say continue. So if we did if this condition I equals x plus equals 2, we could do continue. And the context of this loop, that wouldn't be very helpful. It wouldn't even work. But to show you what it would do, you do this line of code, and then continue would skip everything else and go back to this evaluate the condition. So those are your kind of two keywords that you can use inside of loops to manipulate how the loop is operating: continue and break. So if we just want to test that out real quick, we can call our function while loop. If you have any questions about how this function is written, what it's doing, what this stuff is, go back and watch the previous videos. So here we see that this function is, if it's even, add 2, multiply by 2. We can see that going through there. So that's the while loop. The next loop we're going to look at is the do while loop, which is the exact same thing as the while loop, except if you could probably guess from the syntax here that the condition is evaluated at the end of the loop opposed to being evaluated at the beginning of the loop. So what this guarantees when you use a do while loop is that the code within the loop runs at least one time. So here we're going to change this to the do while loop and just run it with x equals 3. Whoops. Give me a second here. Alright. So we see 2, 1, 0. That's what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to count down and print out. But if we can change this to 0, which would result in the condition starting as it wouldn't evaluate as true. So if this is a while loop, it wouldn't run at all. But we see with the do while loop, we get -1, and it runs exactly one time. The last loop I want to show you guys is the for loop. This may look a little complicated at first with all this stuff going on here, but it's really not that bad. You have 3 parts of this loop separated by semicolons. You have, this is called the initialization. So you're going to declare 2 integer variables, x equals 10 and I equals 0, separated by commas. What you cannot do here is you cannot make like int x and char I. That doesn't work. They all have to be the same type. They don't have to be integers. They could be strings. They could be whatever, but they all have to be the same type. And then this is the condition. So you're going to run this loop until the condition is true. Then you have the increment or decrement, whatever it's called. It doesn't have to be. It's usually called the increment. But you're going to take your variables that you did over here and do a function on them. This usually you use it for an index, so you increase the I by 1. And in this case, you can actually do multiple things. So we're going to decrease x by 1 and increase I by 1, and we'll just print out I. So we'll just print 1 through 10. So that's pretty straightforward. For loops are very useful. So here we go, 1 through 9, or 0 through 9. Excuse me. The last thing we're going to do in this video is print out the a string variable, or a string array. Not a string, an array of characters, which is a string. So we have an array of characters that I've just declared here. Char x is hello world as a string. So you have an array of characters designated by this guy. So you have an array. So we're going to use a for loop here. This is where I said these come in very handy. So we're going to declare an index, and we're going to set it equal to 0. And then our condition right here is going to be when index is less than 0 of the size, or less than the size of the array, we're going to do the loop. And then after we do the loop, we're going to increase index by 1. So this will iterate through each index and print the value at that index. So we should see printed at the terminal, hello world. So I just get rid of this and go through and print, and we see hello world printed to the terminal. So just to go through this slower, we're declaring our index equals 0, index less than size of the array. So the array hello world is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters long. So when index, so this will evaluate every time to be a constant, even though it's a function. So, but when index is less than 12, evaluate this, run this code, print the value. So that's pretty straightforward. In the next video, that's going to be our last tutorial in the beginner series before we move on to intermediate tutorials. I feel like we've covered everything from basic math to conditionings, now loops. We're going to move on, and the next video is going to essentially challenge you guys to make several string functions. So instead of just using the string class, we're going to review all the material that we have gone over in the last 9 videos and do some string manipulations so you guys can implement or show what you've learned and kind of get some practice with it. Then we'll move on to more advanced topics in the next video series. Thanks for watching.